So, I've been familiar with the Evangelion franchise for quite a number of years now. I'll just confess right away that I started the series with the rebuilds in the early 2010s. I watched Rebuild 1 and I watched Rebuild 2, and I thought they were pretty good science fiction overall. I was fairly new to anime as a medium, and so I didn't really have any of the deep, long, sincere, overly interesting connections that many Evangelion fans seem to have with the franchise. But you know what? I rated it a solid, 8 out of 10. And then a few years later, while I was still waiting for 4.0 like so many other people, I went back and I actually watched the Evangelion series. I didn't think it was revolutionary. I really didn't think it was everything that lots of people had told me that it was. I didn't think it was enormously deep. I didn't think it was enormously complicated. But still, I understood why people would think it was, and I chose to respect them for that opinion. Then I went and watched more of Hideki Anno's work, especially works like Gunbuster, and I started to see, there's something to this guy. He's got a lot of creative vision. He's obviously pretty damn mental, but he's got it when it counts, and I quite liked it. And it's kind of ironic that I should talk about Gunbuster as one of Hideki Anno's first works, because in many ways, 4.0 really feels like a revisit to Gunbuster. It's got the same kind of breathless tone to the plot that the Gunbuster episodes had. It really feels as if Hideki Anno is going from a relatively grounded and solid premise to absolute nonsense in as short a time as possible. Because let's be honest, Gunbuster could have been 40 episodes, and we still wouldn't have gotten to the part about the flying cybernetic psychic navigator dolphins. So there's that to keep in mind when watching 4.0. I'm not going to drag this out too much. I just wanted to establish a few credentials at the beginning and make it clear that I'm not an enormous, raving fan of this series. I think it's pretty good. I genuinely would recommend it to newcomers, but I don't, own 6 Ray body pillows, and besides, I think Mari is the best girl overall. And if that hasn't driven off any hardcore fans, I don't know what the hell will. So, Evangelion 4.0, in a nutshell, is it good? Yes, but it's also good in the way that watching a really talented person take vast amounts of dodgy acid is good. It's an experience, and you're not going to get that experience anywhere else. But at the same time, you're left with this feeling that you've just done something that's quite morally questionable, and not really something that the mainstream would really approve of. And that's very much something that 4.0 gets away with. 4.0 really feels as if Hideki Anno just spent the entire production run doing as much drugs as he could possibly get his hands on. And I don't mean light drugs either. I mean acid. I mean ecstasy. I mean crack. I mean all the kind of drugs that you're not supposed to mix together. But he took them all in gratuitous, voluminous quantities. And then he went and wrote his storyboards. And then, right at the end, he realised that nothing of what he'd written made the slightest bit of sense, and so he went and stole the work of other directors and other writers who, frankly, can do this sort of thing better than he can. Namely, compressing things a bit, and making things have the slightest bit of sense, especially in a gigantic, prolonged myth arc like Evangelion has. First problem with it is that the first 30 or 40 minutes or so is basically Violet Evergarden if it was written by the Japanese Board of Rural Tourism, because it's basically just a rehash of a character arc that happened in the first 2 movies, and we really didn't need it. There's probably some deep symbolism in the fact that a clone of Rai slowly grows to adopt her humanity and then just dissolves back into LCL at the end. I think that's actually a fairly interesting thing. It's just that it really shouldn't have been in the very last movie, not when there was so much else that could be done. See, this is the thing with Hideki Anno, in that he can do really good character drama. It's just that he really can't do really good character drama and high-intensity mecha action in the same pace. you could basically skip the first 40 minutes of the movie and not really miss anything of any massive consequence apart from Shinji sad, Shinji become not sad, lots of nostalgia bait that we didn't learn about in 3.0 suddenly gets crammed into the movie, and then Shinji goes to do what he should have done at the end of 3.0. And that's basically that plot wrapped up for you, with you missing out on a lot of very pretty visuals and some really quite nice interpersonal drama that doesn't really go anywhere. So anyway, all these people get together at, I think it's the South Pole, where the Black Moon is, and they all decide to just shoot each other until something interesting happens, and apparently it's all to do with Gendo's grand plan to bring about instrumentality, and I was really, really hoping they would have an explanation for any of the things that happened in 3.0, but guess what, they don't. There is zero explanation for any of this nonsense. Basically, it's something to do with awakening Evangelion 13, who is the embodiment of despair, and reach Evangelion Infinity, which is an Evangelion that only exists in people's imagination in an anti-universe that can only be created if the atoms, which are never explained, somehow form together with the Black Moon to create a spear that can pierce into the boundary between humans and the soul and reality in like a near-impact event that creates a gateway to the realm of the gods, where there is a place called Golgotha, where humans must ultimately make the choice between becoming angels and surrendering their intellect or dying. And yeah, if that doesn't sound like it makes any sense at all and comes out of absolutely nowhere at the last minute, that's because it absolutely does. And the thing about this plot is that if you've watched End of Evangelion and have been paying attention to the series, the motivations are both absurdly overly complicated and incredibly simplistic from all sides. But I think I'll focus on Gendo for a moment. Gendo, I think, is a really wasted character in 4.0, because Gendo, throughout the first couple of movies and the entire series, really, is built up as this really mysterious, interesting figure with lots of deep motivations and complicated character relations with the rest of SEAL, who, again, are never really explained as to what exactly they want to do and why they were doing it. Like Dead Sea Scrolls, all that kind of nonsense, never even mentioned, not referenced, nothing. Anything about the angels, their origin, where they come from, anything like that, nothing. Good luck with that. You won't get anything of that. In fact, I don't think that angels, apart from the one that lives in Asuka's face, oh yeah, spoiler warning, Asuka has an angel living in her face. None of that ever gets explained. Moving on, I really hate to belabor this point, but this movie aggressively refuses to explain anything. It reminds me a great deal of Digimon Adventure Tri, actually, in that was a show that could have explained so many things and yet aggressively refused to answer even a single question. And it was like really proud of that. It was really, really, really proud about not answering your questions. And Evangelion 4.0 is a bit like that as well. Although I don't think it's so much that it doesn't want to answer your questions as Hideki Anno does not want to admit that he basically made this storyboard by slamming together a bunch of Evangelion action figures and calling it a day. So, Gendo Ikari, I kind of like him as a character. I'm a bit of an introvert myself, and I don't form relationships easily. But you know what? I really never got the desire to destroy the entire universe because my waifu was taken away from me in a weird experiment, which... Also, we never actually learn how on earth Yui is even inside Ever 01 in this franchise. It doesn't make any sense at all. TLDR, Gendo Ikari was an introvert who wanted to understand the universe via knowledge. He met Yui, he banged Yui, he became incredibly pussy-whipped, and after they had Shinji together, Yui did a thing, and now she is inside Unit 01, and Gendo decides the perfectly rational answer to this is to destroy all of humanity and reset the universe just so he can be back with his wife. Now, in fairness, this is basically his plot in End of Evangelion as well, so you can't say that it comes out of left field. But the thing is, he has a lot more time, ironically, to develop and breathe as a character throughout both the rebuilds and this movie, and you would think that Anno, considering that he basically went with the exact same motivation for him in the rebuilds as in the series, would take this time to more extensively analyze and explore his relationship with Yui and who he is as a person in order to fully establish why he is the kind of personality that would do such an insane and ridiculous thing in order to get back with a loved one. But no, that does not happen. Like, basically the entire plot is wrapped up within the space of 5 minutes because, believe it or not, Shinji finally decides to have a rational conversation with his father. And his father essentially goes, you know what? Yeah, you go and do whatever the hell you like, Shinji. I'm okay with that. I've spent my entire life trying to do this. I have been ready to sacrifice billions of people at the wave of a hand. I have completely held my motivations to my chest. I have betrayed the most advanced secret organization in the entire world, manipulated them and outgambited them at every turn for the purpose of this one wish, and I'm now in the exact place where I should. But oh look, somebody made a new spear of humanity, and now I cannot do anything, and okay, Shinji, have fun. And then Misato dies, because I suppose that's what she needed to do. Like, she stays aboard her ship, and she crashes it into a giant naked Rai, so that she can deliver a new spear of, the Spear of Gaius, I think, to Shinji, to avert the final impact. And that's another thing I don't understand. Like, why on earth did Misato have to die and sacrifice herself? Are there no such things as automatic systems aboard the fantastically advanced magical supercarrier she's piloting? She's not an angel. She's not an EVA pilot. She can't just magically project an AT field. So why is she sacrificing herself? There was literally no need for that. She has a child. That was really selfish, and I really hope she was resurrected in the ending and just every single character took turns bitch slapping her for all the stupid things she did. But anyway, that's kind of besides the point. So yeah, the entire plot is basically wrapped up in those 5 minutes, and Anno just gets reined in. I'm pretty sure somebody in the editing room just broke in and smacked him several times in the face and told him, look, please stop introducing 6 new stub articles to evageeks.com a second and actually explain things. You wrote decent characters back in the series. Go back, take those notes please, and use them to actually write a decent character interaction for a change. And I think that was probably in reaction to the fact that Evangelion 3.0 is so absurdly contrived in that not a single character asks a sane and reasonable question at any point of any of the other characters. Nobody goes out of their way to learn any of the motivations of other people. Everybody just barges around yelling at people the entire movie and screaming and howling and demanding that things get done without ever explaining why or why these things need to be done or how they need to be done. They're just like, you know, Shinji, you are an asshole, you destroyed the entire world, we're not going to explain how, we're not going to explain why, but you're an asshole now, and we need to stick a collar on your neck, and, oh, wait, here is a seal coming to get you, and we won't explain why they want to get you, we'll just demand that you do something, and then you're going to run away for entirely rational reasons, and then you're going to go to people who are not going to explain anything, and who tell you to do something, and the only nice person in the entire movie will speak to you in very vague ways while playing a piano. And, yeah, and then another impact almost happens because nobody talked to each other for any reason. And it's kind of the same here. I am absolutely astonished on so many levels that Shinji just never asks any questions. Like, Shinji remains until like the last 15 minutes the most passive protagonist ever. I don't understand what Hideki Anno is getting at, because right at the end, Shinji literally rewrites all of reality so that the Evangelions no longer exist, and he makes everybody happy in this generic Tokyo kind of place that I suppose is the real world just without Evangelions, which, have fun doing your taxes, Shinji, and have fun with Corona. I hope you remember to rewrite that out of existence while you were at it. I don't know, it's very strange. Why was he in any way qualified to do any of that? Because he doesn't know anything about other people. He has very vague interactions with a few people throughout the last 2 movies, and I think the amount of character interactions that he actually has, the number of lines that he shares with people that are not Fuyutsuki or Gendo, and maybe Misato, can easily be counted on one hand with, like, fingers left over to throw up the devil's horns. He just does not feel in any way the kind of character who would be the right choice to make this kind of massive reality-altering decision. And I mean that from both a narrative and a personal perspective, or an in-character perspective, I mean. This version of Shinji just does not have the strong interpersonal relationships that Shinji from the series had. Shinji from the series was a pretty solid character. He was very passive. I did not like Shinji in the series, but I can separate my genuine dislike for him as a character from my respect for him for the way he was written. And Shinji in the series had a perfectly valid reason to just kind of peace out and let third impact happen all around him, because he'd spent the last dozen or so episodes just slowly getting everything ripped away from him, piece by piece, until there is nothing left but this screaming, terrified, violently traumatized husk of a schoolboy. So I can understand that, but in the rebuilds, he just never gets a chance to breathe or set down any kind of roots. All of his relationships take place over the course of a couple of days at most, and I wish Anno had just let things breathe just a little bit more, even if it meant we had even less time to understand the insane, ridiculous plot, just so that we could get something like that, some more sanity, some more rationality, of which there is not very much in Evangelion 4.0. There is just so many parts of this movie that make no sense and literally made me say out loud, fuck you, to the screen. Like, for example, the fact that Asuka is a clone now for some reason, something that was not even vaguely hinted at. It really feels like the rise of Skywalker in some ways, that Anno is just desperately trying to salvage the criticisms that 3.0 got and the criticisms that Rebuilds got in general, in that there's no real time for the character interactions that are present in the series, by saying, oh wait, no, you don't understand, it's not like that at all. Asuka, she never has chance to go through this complicated character arc regarding her insane mother, because, psych, she actually doesn't have a mother, she is actually a clone, and yeah, because we have cloning technology now that applies to people who aren't Rey, because shush, look at the pretty lights, damn you, look at the pretty lights. And it's the same kind of with Rai and... No, not Rai, Mari. Goodness me, Mari is a strange character in this movie. I like Mari. I really do. I'm a big fan of Mari. But she's a bit creepy in this movie because it's revealed that she's actually older than the rest of the main cast. And again, no idea why. We have no... Her name is Mary Iscariot for some reason, which is another one of Anno's absolutely torturous Judeo-Christian references that, as a dedicated Christian myself, I find just so hilariously fumbling about in the dark, it's ridiculous. It is just comically farcical how random and bizarre the Christian allegories in this series are, and it really amuses me when people think there's something deeper to it, because it's so obviously just Anno seeing something funny and interesting that he likes about other mythologies and just jamming it in, like the average role player who looked at the Wikipedia page on Norse mythology and thought, hell yeah, I'm gonna have my character worship some random Nordic deity because their Wikipedia page sounds really interesting. I will refute to my deathbed that there is any kind of serious symbolism in the Christian references in Evangelion, both the series and the rebuilds, so please don't try and spin that with me. But yeah, anyway, back on the topic of Mari, I think that she's another wasted character because, first of all, in, 2.0, she is this wacky character that's obviously a deconstruction of the stereotypical, miserable, upset, brooding Evangelion character that all the other characters are, and she's a delight to watch. I love Mari when she's just dancing around and doing stupid things, because that is how I feel that somebody in her situation really would act. She really does come across as a mature woman in a child's body, in that she has seen it all and she is just prancing around and making the most of things while they last, and I really respect that. And again, she's my favourite character for that reason. But the way she kind of fawns over Shinji is, I have questions about Hideki Anno's motivations for that, because it's very strange. It feels arbitrary, again, that it's just something shoved in there to give Shinji a happy ending rather than anything that makes logical sense. Because again, when Mari introduces herself, she literally has to remind him who she is, because they had so little interaction together in the movies before. And it's the same with Asuka, kind of saying, hey Shinji, the guy I shared a few dozen lines at most with during the rebuild films, I used to have a crush on you, but now I don't, so bye, cheerio. And that's pretty silly and embarrassing. I think the most interesting and developed characters in these movies are definitely Kaworu, and probably Misato as well. But that kind of sheds light on another problem, in that Kaworu is, again, not explained. I really liked him when he was basically just another angel that kind of understood humanity in certain ways, but was also very obviously still limited by the fact that he had the fruit of life and not the fruit of knowledge. He could relate to people, he could understand them, he could talk to them, but when it came to actual decision making, he had no clue and he couldn't understand it, and he just gives up in both movies. And again, he's another symptom of the nobody asks rational questions problem that the Rebuild franchise is plagued with. I don't understand it, and it's really silly and contrived. Another thing that I find really silly and contrived is Ryojo Kaji, in that he's dead in 3.0 and 4.0, but in 3.0 he's just, to my recollection, never mentioned, and in 4.0 he's suddenly Magic Space Jesus, in that he does everything. All the things that were done in the rebuilds, apparently it was all him. He created this gigantic seed storage place where the genetic material of all life on Earth is stored. That was all him. Never explained why. He impregnated Misato, and that was apparently a thing during 2.0. That definitely had to happen within the time frame of 2.0 to make sense. And it's never explained when or how, because they're supposed to have this weird relationship, and yeah, he just banged her and got her pregnant, because that's definitely something that would have happened, I guess. And then he was the one that stopped near third impact, because, how? Yeah, we never explained why. He just did. Did he die when that happened, or did he die later on? And it doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. I don't know what Anna was trying to do. Like, I think he just felt bad that Kaji in the series is just kind of anticlimactically killed off without another word, because he was really depressed that day and decided he didn't want to write this really interesting, fun character. And he decided, you know what, I was really mean to Ryota Kaji, so I really need to make sure he is literal Jesus in the new series and is responsible for everything, and that without him, every single character would be dead and horribly mutilated in a ditch somewhere. I don't know. This movie is just a non-stop psychedelic experience. I was partially drunk while I was watching it, and I think that is the best way to do it. Do not get yourself all the way drunk while you're watching this film. You want to be, I'd say, about 2 shots of vodka, really strong vodka, worth of drunk, enough to get a very nice buzz that lowers your inhibitions enough that you're not thinking too hard about this stuff, because none of it makes sense. It is a strange level of storytelling where it is just convoluted and complicated enough that you can convince yourself that there is something really deep and meaningful going on. But it is a Dadaist painting of a story, The Rebuilds. It really feels like Hideki Anno's entire career has been carefully trying to gain enough power and influence over the anime industry to create a completely nonsensical work of Dadaist art and then sell it as a mainstream gigantic blockbuster film franchise. And I can think of no greater example of that starting than what I mentioned in the beginning, the psychic dolphins in Gunbuster. It's like if you took that one frame of animation, or that one cell that has the psychic dolphins, and then just extended it out into an entire movie. It really feels as if he's just trying his best to get away with as much stuff, knowing that nobody's going to question him because he created the most influential anime franchise of all time. It's unquestionable. I'm pretty sure there is some kind of contract within the anime industry that if an editor gets within 3 miles of Hideki Anno, they are immediately murdered by the ninjas. If you are in any way involved with editing or story writing with Hideki Anno, you are risking your life because, my goodness, that man has no brakes. Anyway, I am very tired now, and this ramble makes about as much sense as the movie does, but I wanted to get my thoughts down on it, so hopefully you have fun. There's not going to be any footage behind this because, my goodness, I'm not going to be murdered by YouTube copyright, but thank you very much for listening. Take care, all you mad, crazy, insane people. Maybe I'll talk more about this later. Goodness me, I don't know. Goodbye!